But that was driven from creating a situation where I wanted to have trainers who I felt like I was helping make them better.
Right.
I don't want this kind of servant relationship where they're just handling hours that I don't want to. The goal too would be, after this long, I want to see other trainers do well and find those trainers who I think will have a long career and help them kind of move through that. And it's like something I joke about with every practicum student, is just saving them from 100 of the errors I made in the first 10 years of business.
Welcome to The Expansion Code. I'm Heather, and I could not be more excited to finally launch this podcast. This is the space where we dive into all things business, growth, leadership, and team expansion. I am really passionate about building something bigger than myself, sharing knowledge, and creating opportunities for others to thrive. I started solo, and now I lead a team of over 50, so trust me, I know the highs and the challenges and the incredible moments that come with scaling a business. Throughout this podcast, I'll be sharing insights, strategies, and conversations with some truly incredible guests. We are going to cover everything from marketing and leadership to mindset shifts and business expansion. So my goal is to give you real, actionable takeaways that you can apply to your own journey. Let's dive in, learn together, and unlock what's next. Welcome to The Expansion Code. Welcome back to another episode of The Expansion Code with Heather Dick. That's me, your host. It is a pleasure to be here with you today. Today I have Justin Cross. He's a gym owner in Sherwood Park, Alberta. He's a very good friend of mine. We've collaborated with our businesses a lot in the past, and I think he's got a lot of insight to things that you'll be interested in. So welcome, Justin.
Thanks for having me.
Why don't you give our listeners a little bit of a background of yourself and your business background?
For sure. So I graduated from the NAEP program in 2012. And then from there, like from scratch, we started our business working out of different rec centers in and around Edmonton. So we're at 4 different locations throughout Edmonton, kind of driving back and forth during the day. The goal with that being like we'd slowly kind of focus our efforts on one location. So over the years, which is about 2.5 years, we slowly stopped going to certain locations as we kind of consolidated our efforts at one. That ended up being a location in Sherwood Park, a public rec center there. So that took us about kind of 2.5 years to start to consolidate towards that kind of location. And then through that process, as we kept building that business there, kind of training our classic like one-on-one style pairs training, we started building other programming, whether that was going and helping out with school programs, group exercise type stuff. That's kind of where we evolved over our first probably 6 to 8 years. Just before COVID, we started renting space out of a kind of a commercial gym in Sherwood Park. And then COVID hit, we moved there full scale just because public rec centers weren't as kind of consistent when it came to access and stuff like that. So started from scratch in 2012, started with classic like one-on-one pairs training, and then progressively over those years, we started to build into more kind of small group training and that kind of stuff, moving outside the normal scope.
Sorry for interrupting you.
That's fine.
Classic. I am very interested to hear how you grew your network, because I think, because you started as yourself, right?
Yeah.
You say we, but I do that with Blush as well, as it's like a entity, but Blush, I'm the sole owner. And so I think our listeners would be really interested to hear how you grew your business to you would now have a team of 3.
Yeah.
But also how you branched out into things outside of just pairs and single training.
Yeah. The biggest challenge is going from like 0 to 1. Like right. as everyone probably listening to this knows, like I can do my job fine and I can keep myself busy, but like the movement from yourself to like now taking care of someone else's schedule, filling that schedule can be a massive challenge. And we like, had success in hiring people in the past, and kind of some have done really well and some we've learned from. So that is like, you can't downplay that as being the biggest challenge. What has been helpful for us is we work with practicum students every year from NAET, located in Edmonton. So every year we get to work with practicum students, and that gives us at least like a 70-hour kind of tryout for trainers, so to speak. So I guess the big value there was, and I guess where that could transfer to other business owners, would be coordinating with someone in your space that's in either like helping mentor people already or is involved in some sort of schooling, and in some way being available to volunteer your time to mentor these students they have. And then your kind of kickback is you get an opportunity to see how these students are and kind of start to build a talent pool from which you can draw potential contractors or employees. That was been helpful for us. And so we've mentored probably close to 16, 17 practicum students over the past 12 years. And from that, we've hired two to three in that time. So there's been some that have been really good, and there's some that like maybe aren't a great fit for our product.
Okay, that's really interesting because I would like to know how you got into Nate. So like someone, we'll use the beauty industry because that's where I'm from. I would say that the same thing that's relatable is like going to hair school.
Yeah.
You know, and I would make a relationship with this hair school, and then I would be able to get their apprentices. How did you do that?
So having gone to Nate, the big thing was like having gone to that program, and I would say like have applied myself and done well there, and like left there with a good, I guess, relationship with instructors. You know what I mean? I'm sure some students just treat it as like a means to an end. For me, I kind of always treated it as a career. And so that was like dealing with instructors with the idea being these will probably be my peers, or hopefully they become my peers. So I think that even just the baseline, how you approach that schooling would separate you from maybe the pack a little bit. So that's maintaining those relationships. And then literally our first year out, we took our first practicum students, which is probably like a bit of a stretch, kind of trying to mentor someone having been only in the business for a year.
You're just a baby.
Yeah. So we like had just started. It's like, hey, here's as much as we possibly know, and we'll try to transfer that to you.
Right.
And it was still like pretty successful because I think I was blissfully unaware of like how much work that was mentoring someone, and we just took it on. But yeah, how do you build that relationship? I think it comes from like having those good relationships with the instructors and people that taught you. And then they have that trust in this is a good site. This is a good location for you to kind of mentor our students as they're moving through the program. And then when they come to us, we make sure we like try to go above and beyond to set up those students for success.
You do a really good job at building relationships and networking and community. And I know this about you because I know this person, like I know you personally. And I think that that's one of the reasons why your company is so successful, especially over the past 10, 12 years. Because what you're talking about, I actually just recorded a episode about networking and things like, and I'll ask you about this too, your mastermind, your coaching, like all of these things, having these building blocks to grow your business, your relationships at Nate, it's imperative.
Yes. Yeah. Like and I think it comes back to like treating that like those instructors are going to be your peers. And then the thing that always kind of came back to me is talking to people about pursuing this as a profession. And like you joke about it now, but it's like, well, what, like when you'd say, oh, I'm a personal trainer, people would be like, okay, like, is that all you do? Like, is that your like sole job? Like, can you like provide for yourself with that?
Totally.
And that stuck in my mind as something that like, I wouldn't say like annoyed me because it was kind of like, it was like funny by the end of it, but it was like, I want to treat this like this is my passion. It's something I take very seriously and treating it like a job. And I think sometimes trainers might fall into that trap of like treating it almost unprofessionally. Like it's kind of a hobby. It's a bit of like something I just like doing and not like a serious profession. And I think the more seriously you treat it, people recognize that and people like that and appreciate that and trust that. And they talk kind of better about your business because you're treating it like it's a professional business and not like a hobby, and it's just kind of like carefree and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's really good advice. Okay, so before this episode, Justin and I were talking about how we could relate your business to my bulk audience, being beauty entrepreneurs, and exactly what you're saying. I don't know how many times people asked as a makeup artist, it was like, oh, but like, when are you going to get a real job?
Yes.
And, you know, people don't really realize, and I've had lots of people ask me over the years, like, how did you build this from just doing makeup? It's like, man, it's not just makeup. Yeah. I'm getting paid $150 an hour.
Yes.
Like, this is not, you know, personal trainers, you guys make great money.
Yes.
If you work.
Yes. Yeah. And to be honest, that's like issues we found with trainers in the past that maybe didn't treat it as much as like a job, a career, something to like, you know, professional development and stuff like that is a huge factor. I'm sure with makeup as well. It's like trends change. You need to be learning. If you stayed with what you learned 10 years ago, you're getting left behind really fast.
Yeah.
And that's kind of another thing where it's like, if you treat this professionally like your job, you're going to want to constantly get better at it. And if you don't, you're just going to feel like a hobby because you're going to have been doing the same thing, or, you know what I mean? It'll be really much just like what you like doing. Sometimes you got to get out of that comfort zone a little bit and learn and kind of challenge what you already thought you knew to keep on the, let's call it the cutting edge of like what's happening, what's new when it comes to training. So that's kind of a big factor too. I would say like that professional development that keeps us current and kind of ahead of the curve, hopefully.
You're so smart.
Thank you. We try. We at least sound smart.
Well, no, it is true. I think that it's really, like what you're saying is really valuable, and people we get like have you heard of imposter syndrome before?
Yeah.
You know, we get this like, oh, I don't know if I deserve this, like this publication or this award or whatever. And it's like, no, this is your job. People are hiring you to do this.
Yeah.
You're obviously very good at it.
Yeah. And with everything, like there's some stuff that's helpful with that. Like sometimes I find that imposter syndrome is helpful to a point. Like you need to like shut that down eventually, but sometimes it's helpful for you to like celebrate those wins, but then get back to work.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's always like a balance, I would say, of like seeing value in certain things like that.
Don't get too big for your britches.
Don't get too big.
Is that the word? Britches?
Sure. Britches? I don't know.
So tell me then, how did you go from 1 to 2 team members?
So like I said, our first hire was like a NAEP practicum student that worked with us, and he was a rock star through his practicum and made it really easy. And through that process, and again, like we had learned from practicum students in the past, like this was probably our 14th practicum students.
That's a lot.
So so it's a learning curve, like what worked well with practicum students in the past and what didn't work well. So we kind of built that kind of understanding as we went through, and I think that was a perfect situation where we had a really good practicum student with us who was really motivated, and we had enough experience working with practicum students to like guide them into our business really well. So that transition from finishing his 70-hour practicum with us, transitioning to being a contract trainer with us was really seamless. Like he was able to keep some clients that he had already started with and kind of hit the ground running with our business, which probably wouldn't have happened maybe a couple of years prior. We didn't have those systems in place to help him out. But that was really helpful. Again, the practicum student side of things, getting to work with that trainer for 70 plus hours, and then having that opportunity to transition them right into our business. And they already kind of have a good idea of our systems and how we like to train and stuff. So we save ourselves a ton of work kind of bringing that person with us to kind of teach them everything. They kind of already got like a head start.
So what systems are you talking about?
So and the training side of things, it'd be like program design. How do you lead sessions? How do you coach things? You know, like how do you coach like fundamental movements like a squat or a bench press or something like that? Having kind of a system in place where we coach that relatively similarly. So when clients are coming in and maybe they're working with a different trainer, they're getting to still hear the same cues, the same feedback. So it's kind of a constant message, which really helps people learn things when they're hearing that same feedback again and again, helps them kind of reinforce those skills, especially if they've never done something before. It's helpful to have maybe different people giving you the same cues because it really reinforces like the value of those, and it makes more sense quite a bit quicker.
When you talk about these systems, I think a lot of times, we've talked about this before too, we kind of just coast along and we're getting really busy and we aren't really tracking anything. We don't have goals. We don't know our numbers, but we're successful and we're paying rent. So how did you get to the point where you were just kind of coasting to having solid tracking systems and things like that with your team?
Yeah, I think the starting out, you get like, it's almost like the rush of like the stress and figuring things out on the fly. And then after like a couple of years, you should be tired of that. Like if you're still like, that's still like the motivator is like the craziness of like not being prepared and everything's new. It's like, we probably need to like take a step back and work on some things.
Yeah.
But after you've kind of got past that part, and you want to move from that 0 to 1, you need to do some behind the scenes work of building those systems so you can start to hand stuff off, which is a lot of work, and it's really annoying because it's going to feel like you're maybe dumbing things down. That's probably the wrong word, but you need to kind of lay out things how they're done and be specific. And it's like, oh, well, we just like, I'll assume. The biggest like making like assumptions about what people are going to know. You need to at least have that experience to realize all the errors that get made that you made years ago are going to probably get made again if you're not like very upfront with like, here's how we do this, like here's literally how we put stuff away, you know what I mean, here's how like to show a client how to put a clamp on a barbell or something like as simple as that. And taking that extra time to start to build those systems of how you coach things. And for us, that starts with like our practicum. We have like a curriculum for what like students move through, and we didn't have that for the first couple practicum students. And I realized like I can't keep redoing all this kind of on the fly with every new practicum student. We need to have like a weekly breakdown of what we're going to go through. And then from that, it kind of developed, okay, we could start to use that component to start to onboard trainers and really help us bring them online with us as a trainer. And it's like move through those different checkpoints of like understanding, you know, how to open the gym, how to like, you know, close up the space, where to turn on the lights, like how to coach certain movements, kind of from like 0 to, you know what I mean, getting them on board with being able to be like a full speed trainer.
Well, think about Starbucks.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, Starbucks, McDonald's, any chain franchise restaurant that's very, very successful has systems in place. And we as solo entrepreneurs or entrepreneurs, leaders of a team of 1 or 2, we're like, we're just going to wing it.
Yeah.
But really, your team wants to succeed, and it's your job to set them up to succeed.
Yeah.
And also from a client point of view, I'm a client of yours, and I see the cohesion throughout your team.
Yeah.
It makes my experience better.
Yes.
But you're right. It's tedious.
It's tedious. And like you have to get to a point where like you're so tired of the hours you're putting in.
Yeah.
Like this is, for me, like it was starting to have kids and like realizing that these hours are unmanageable. Like this is not something I can do for another 10 years. I'd already done it for like through COVID. We were like hit like a decade of our business. I was like, I can't do this for another 10 years. Mm-hmm. So that was the push. So there's always going to be like a push and a pull.
Right.
The push for me was like having kids. The pull was like, I'm going to be able to start carving time away from the business and spending time and all that stuff, which became a much more important thing when I had kids. And those first couple of years, like it was like a high, you got like really fired up and that good stress of like running a business and being successful. After a while, I was like, okay, that's great. I still love that, but the trade-off's not worth it anymore.
Yeah.
And I need to start building these systems. And like I said, for us, it was a nice practice doing the practicum placements. That was helpful for us because I was still kind of a one-man army, but we get a chance to like mentor students, and that gave me the practice to start building these systems of how do we coach trainers. And then from there, it like easily flowed into, okay, we're not just coaching students, now we're coaching like someone that we want to work for us. Mm-hmm. So that made it a little bit easy to spend that extra time behind the scenes, and it will be time you don't get paid for. But once you have those in place, you just work on getting them better. And I think the biggest push there is like, you're starting from zero. Who cares how crappy it is?
Totally.
Start from whatever you can, whatever that simple system is, and then just prepare yourself to get better every single time. So you're editing it, you're improving it. Who cares where it started? Just start making it better like every single week, every single year.
Okay, I have 3 things.
Okay. Shoot.
I'm so proud of you.
Thank you.
It's really fun because, I mean, we've known each other for a really long time.
Like a decade.
Yeah. So watching our businesses grow together is like, it's pretty cool.
Yes.
Not together, but side by side, I guess, parallel. We're running 2 different businesses. But
yes.
Okay. Also, the second thing I want to say, it's in reference to what you said at the end. I always say this to anyone I'm coaching, not training, but business-wise, a messy start is still a start.
Yes.
So it's never going to be perfect. It's the same thing as this podcast. I sat on it for a year.
Yes.
I was just like,
yeah.
And then the third thing I forget. So
that's
the
fine.
floor is yours.
I talking to that second thing. I think what's a challenge sometimes too is when you get so good at your job, starting something new that you know is going to probably suck is really challenging.
It is.
Like by the time we've been training, I feel really good doing like these things that I do as a trainer, and now I'm going to like go start this thing, and I'm going to probably be terrible at it. It's like I'm not sure if I'm like my ego's prepared to suck at something again.
Yeah.
And that's a challenge. And so you need that. I think for me, it was that push of like, who cares if I suck at this? Like I need to do this. Like it became a need. It'd be probably better if it didn't have to get to that point. But being okay with the suck, like it's going to suck starting new things. But so did like parts of my career when I started.
100%.
Like, I would train 8 hours a day and I would drive 8 hours a day. That was terrible. I would never want to do that again. But like you just embrace that. And it was like, that was just what my first year of business was. I looked to never do that again. Mm-hmm. But like, I was fine doing that at that time. It's going to get better every single year is kind of the big push.
Well, and it goes back to, I remember what you said, and it actually ties into what you just said. You don't get paid to, like as a business owner, I don't get paid to train my new salon manager.
Yeah.
Same thing is for yourself. You didn't get paid to drive these hours.
No.
And it's just it's just part of the business. It's part of owning a business. And once you can wrap your head around the fact that you're no longer behind the chair or you're no longer in the trenches with clients, training them and all of those things, you're making money in other ways. It's more of a residual income from someone else's hard work. Your work has just changed.
Yeah, exactly. It's changed to be being behind the scenes and it's not as easy to like find a monetary value for it.
Yeah.
And again, like I would say for someone struggling to make that move from like zero to one, that like kind of first hire, I think you need to be honest with what your goals are and what's pushing you to do this. I think, do you want to just do that because you feel like you should? You know what I mean? That's probably not a good reason. Like you should have like some concrete goal. And for me, that was like being able to slowly start carving time away from my kids. Like my goal like this.
For your kids, not from your kids.
Yeah. For my kids.
They're angels.
Like
They're
the goal for like this year is like start to maybe 2 weekends of a month. I'm not working like an evening, which seems absurd, but like that would be a huge change for me. It's like 2 weekends of the month, 2 weeks of the month, I'm like not working a Wednesday.
Yeah.
That'd be massive. And so that became like, that's like a big concrete motivator for me to like have the systems in place and the people in place to like be able to like lead the ship when I'm not there. And then being honest with myself that like maybe I think I'm the best at this, but like there's trainers out there that do a much better job than me, and I need to kind of like take a step back and get off my own throne and be like, I have trainers that do a phenomenal job and are probably with certain clients than I am, and just being honest with like, give them the skills, let them get out there and kind of build their own business as well.
I have always had this in the back of my head. I read it in a book. I can't remember which one it was, but it triggered that for me. You can be successful at anything as long as you're okay that someone else gets the credit. And it's so true.
Yeah.
So same with my team. I mean, I've got over 35 girls that do hair and makeup. I'm absolutely not the best girl on the team.
And you shouldn't be.
And I shouldn't be.
Yeah.
But I'm really good at running the company. And
yeah.
so if I'm taking clients every weekend and I'm taking myself away from running this business, it's just going to stay stagnant. Or if anything, it's going to start to fall flat.
Mm-hmm.
And another thing to what you had just said was being honest with yourself as why you want a team. Is it like a clout thing? Is it like a look how big I am and I'm so cool and I run? Because you know what? No one likes a leader like that anyways.
Yeah.
Or is it because you want to have time with your kids and start a family or go traveling or whatever?
Yeah. And I guess like, where that motivation comes from to have that team. Like for me, obviously, like there's selfish components of wanting to like start to carve some time away. Mm-hmm. But then also that was driven from creating a situation where I wanted to have trainers who I felt like I was helping make them better.
Right.
I don't want this kind of servant relationship where they're just handling hours that I don't want to. The goal too would be after this long, I want to see other trainers do well and find those trainers who I think will have a long career and help them kind of move through that. And it's like something I joke about with every practicum student is just saving them from 100 of the errors I made in the first 10 years of business, is like helping a trainer not make those errors. And I would love to be, like I say to them typically, I'd love to be just like a step in the road of your career, and like one that you like look back on with like a really positive mindset. Like that person helped me, you know, like there was we were all both working to help each other out. It wasn't like me just taking from them. I want to create a situation where if they eventually leave our space, which is completely fine, they like left it better and like with a really good feedback.
Mm-hmm. Okay, we need to take a little break because, shocker, this podcast is brought to you by my flagship company, Blush, and I need to give a shout out. So not only does Blush sponsor my lavish lifestyle, it also sponsors this podcast, Shouts. If you know me, you know that I do not play around when it comes to beauty and self-care, and that's why Blush is your one-stop shop for looking and feeling your best. We genuinely do it all. Hair, makeup, nails, massage, tattoo, medi-spa. Basically, if it makes you feel like a goddess, we probably offer it. So whether you're looking for a fresh balayage or a relaxing massage or a little of that I woke up like this glow, we've got the experts to make it happen. Think of it as self-care, but with a little extra love, sunshine, and family. And actually, with our most recent expansion, we now have a private gym, physiotherapy, chiropractic services, and a lot more to help your body. So if you are ready to treat yourself, book an appointment at Blush Artistry, because let's be honest, life's too short for bad hair and uneven eyeliner. You can find us at blush-artistry.ca or over on Instagram at blushartistrymua. Back to the episode. Have you ever had a team member leave that was tumultuous or like a negative experience?
Yeah, like without a doubt. And I think that was like a learning curve we talk about like SOPs or standard operating procedures, or like big words. Like
it's acronyms. I don't like acronyms.
Like certain things, like how we do things. Like a simple, like a trainer we had in the past was like, especially was the case in my opinion, was like if someone had paid for like an hour of coaching with us, they would receive an hour of coaching.
Right.
So if you're like shutting down a workout or a session at like 43 minutes, you know what I mean? Just because like you got everything done that you had planned, it's like that's an error on its like a time management part, and like that client in their mind has paid for like an hour of coaching, an hour of training. You know what I mean? Like obviously like an error got made and that like can't keep happening, which to me seemed like just a very obvious thing. A client paid for an hour, we'll be with them for an hour, helping them in some way for an hour, whether it's building their program, running them through that kind of stuff. That seemed like just an obvious thing to me, but that became like a recurring issue with this trainer, was like shutting down sessions early, like sessions just finished early, like they didn't have enough prepared, or something went wrong there. And them not recognizing that was, in my opinion, something that had huge value. Like that is our value, is like that client paid for that hour, and we're not giving that full value. And it came back to just an assumption of mine that you would fill that hour, you wouldn't shut down a session 17 minutes early. And when that started to happen, it's like, okay, like this is something we have to talk about. Like obviously, like this wasn't coached well enough that like you're with that client for an hour. Like there's a reason for that.
And it's your responsibility to do that as an owner.
Yeah, recognize
like
that and step in and be like, hey, I noticed like you guys like left super early today. Is something wrong? It's like, oh no, we just finished early. I was like, are they okay with that? It's like, yeah, I think they're okay with that. Check in with the client. They're not okay with that. They haven't been okay with it for the past week that it's happened. You know what I mean? Then it becomes like a bigger issue.
Yeah.
So you try to get into that in front of that as fast as you can. And then again, taking extreme ownership, like I should probably set a better example, or like structure that, like we're here for that client pays for an hour, like you're working with them for that hour and with whatever means necessary.
Well, it's your responsibility. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
If your kids are being bad, I mean, they always look to the parent.
Yeah. Parent. Yeah. Whatever you want to call it.
But that was just an analogy. But so did you address this issue with the trainer? Did it keep happening and you let them go, or like did it?
So we addressed that with the trainer, and the big reference for me was like referencing like the value that client is perceiving. Like they're paying for an hour and they're receiving not that full hour. Like we're not just like on a completion basis, like, oh, you just got the job done. It's like the job is the time. So referencing that, and unfortunately that was like something that was probably a bit of a yellow flag for like maybe that trainer didn't like care as much. They're just kind of like looking to get their stuff done and get out of there. So that was like a bit of a like I said, like a yellow flag that like we might have some issues here, and we tried to create it like as much of a coachable moment as we could, but that kind of became a recurring thing of, if there's like, maybe it wasn't 17 minutes, maybe it was like 5 or 7 minutes. And in my opinion, that's might as well be the same. Totally. So that kind of kept coming back as like, hey, like let's find a way to like create 60 minutes of value for this client as best as we could. And unfortunately that like eventually just kind of became a sticking point where like we just couldn't coach past it, which it happens. Like that stuff happens. Like you can't, I think the big takeaway is you're not going to always find people that care about your business as much as you do. And that's okay. It's like not their job to care. You still need them to care enough that like we're maintaining like the quality and stuff like that. And there's situations where like probably a new staff member might show, with their actions like that, maybe they're not a good fit, and you kind of need to recognize that. And maybe that's a big piece of it too, is recognizing those people that aren't maybe a good fit for the service you provide or the industry you're in, and recognizing that actions will speak louder than words, and how they're performing and stuff like that. Like beyond after you've coached that and it's still become a recurring problem, it's like that person might not just be a good fit for the product you're trying to deliver.
And it's up to you to basically read people, your team, your hiring systems, which I would like to know about, like your vetting. What do you have anything in place that you do specifically for each hire that you have, or is it just kind of like a person by person basis?
I think it'd be like reflective of each person.
Right.
I used to talk about like when we're trying to like bring someone on to hire them. Yeah. Like, so I guess our structure for that is like interview process, asking them questions, like what they like, goal setting and that kind of thing. Then on top of that, we have like a practical component where they'll come in and train people in a couple different settings, whether it's like one-on-one or like a small group of 3 clients, and then just see how they interact in that setting. Like we're setting them up with a program, we coach them through like how I would coach this program, and then kind of the struggle is like leaving them to their own devices and like watching and supervising them run that session and like see how it goes. And to be honest, at the end of the day, like the coaching is one thing, like how you coach a squad is one thing, we can always improve on that.
Of course.
But it's like, how do you interact with people is the big one that I care about. Like, did you give those people value? Did they leave like feeling heard? Like, did you make a connection with that person in an hour, which is sometimes tougher than you think. And that's really tough to coach, like the soft skills. So can you show me that you have like good soft skills in that hour, and those people left like feeling like they liked you? Because we can always make you a better coach. It's going to be tough for us to make you like a nicer, more enjoyable person.
A better person.
Like probably not going to happen.
Yeah, the exact same process in my company, Blush. I do like a hiring process. We do a working interview. So then I see them work. I see their actual work.
Yeah.
And it's funny because if I've had like a Blush person, like a Blush artist model, for instance, they'll always pick it apart, right? They're like, oh, well, this wasn't that good and this wasn't that good. And it's like, yeah, but you can teach someone where to put a bobby pin.
Yeah.
I can teach someone how to do brows.
Yeah.
I can't teach them to be a positive person naturally.
Yeah.
Or show up on time. I mean, show up on time maybe is a coaching thing, but you know, these people are interacting with clients that are paying clients and very good money.
Yeah.
And then back to what you said about the hour, I think for people in the service industry, we kind of forget that as a consumer, I'm looking forward to this hour. I cannot wait to be away from my business for an hour or away from my kids or just time for myself. And when we're cutting it short on our clients and basically saying like, your time isn't as important as mine, that's a big deal.
Yeah. I think what sometimes gets forgotten, even when it's like training and the training's meant to be hard, is like you'd hope people look forward to that hour.
Yeah.
Like if we see someone for 2 hours a week, the goal is they're looking forward to that 2 hours, and make the most out of that 2 hours would be a big thing too. And then, again, I don't want to like sound like a broken record. Like it's like sessions can end sometimes a little early, but the big goal is like that person's looking forward to those 2 hours with you. Like bring as much value as you can to those 2 hours, because you want them looking forward to it. And as soon as they're not, as soon as they like learn to loathe that hour, or they start to, you know what I mean, not feel like they're valued for that hour as much as they want to value it, then you're going to tend to see that client kind of drop off. All of a sudden they're not showing up to sessions, and that's kind of like starting down that path of like we're starting to lose that client. And it's tough to build that trust back once you've kind of lost it and they realize like I don't actually like going as much as I thought. Like I don't look forward to it as much, which is the worst thing we could ever hear.
And it's a big business thing to keep your clients. I mean, you as a trainer have had clients for 10 plus, I mean, look at me.
Look at us.
You know,
look at us.
We've been working together for 10 years.
Yeah.
And there's a reason. I've had multiple trainers in between now and then, and
You've tried to stray.
I don't know why.
I don't know why.
Okay, so I just have a couple more questions for you.
Shoot.
How did you get to the point where you were busy enough to fill other trainers' time? So what I'm looking for is like, you were busy, right? Yeah. But how did we get to a point where you were able to fill 2 other trainers?
Yeah, I think that the challenge there early on was like, I was probably at 130% capacity, like working way more hours than I ever like physically could. I think a limiter in the public rec center when we were there was I'd have another trainer like in that rec center with me, and it's a bit of like a balance there of like it's not really our space, we don't really have control, and that in and of itself was like a challenge because we had like clients interested in training, but we were kind of using this third party space that just made it a challenge to like build that business. So the big switch came from we started renting space. We were using that with like our teams and group programming. So we built a really good relationship with schools and teams, and we'd started kind of building that. And these kind of my first hire would come on as kind of like an assistant and helping out, and then they would start to lead those sessions. And as they lead those sessions, then I would backfill kind of my hour that had been taken up now with one-on-one clients. So I guess like the question is like, how do you realize when you're getting too busy? It's tough, right? Because it's a gamble either way. And we've just brought another like rock star trainer, and she's done phenomenal. But like the challenge now again is back. Like, how do I make sure this person is busy? Like, how do I keep them busy? How do you get to that point where like you warrant that other person? I think it's like you get comfortable operating at like 110, 120% capacity, and you kind of plan to have that person come on. So for her, it's worked really well. She's come working with us for a couple days a week, and we have like the programs in place for her to kind of just like start to take them over. So instead of myself running like a 6 a.m. semi-private class, like she's going to start taking those over. Now I'm not working that class anymore. And we've gotten busy enough where she can have enough hours where this is worthwhile for her. But yeah, it's definitely like a struggle, and there's probably not a great answer to that question. I think it's realizing you've become busy enough that you can start pull away from that business. And for us, that was the case. Like we are like looking at the capacity of our sessions and stuff like that is well beyond kind of full. And this is like a good opportunity to like bring someone on.
I think that, I mean, we've already talked for long enough, so we'll probably have to cut it soon, but we didn't really even discuss that your relationship with your clients is how you've grown your business, and you don't do marketing. You don't do anything with social media. I mean, you have a social media page, but your focus actually is giving the best service possible to your clients, and referrals and word of mouth is really how you've grown your business.
Yes.
And so you've gotten to this point now where that has worked, and you're exploding at the seams. You're bursting at the seams.
Yeah.
And now you can hire out. And I think one of the big mistakes that people make, especially as solo entrepreneurs, is they take that leap too soon. So they hire someone before they're bursting at the seams.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden now they're trying to fill your schedule and mine, and there's just not enough money to support the ship.
Yeah,
Support the ship. I made this up.
Yeah. And that's a challenge too, right? Like that balance there of like what's busy enough. And it was a challenge for us in that rec center situation. A little bit easier, like now that we have our space that we utilize, because we have like a little more freedom to schedule clients whenever we want. But that's definitely a challenge in that previous rec center setup. But no, like it's always going to be a gamble.
Yeah.
So that there's nothing I'm going to say where it's like, you'll know for certain once you have like this number of clients, like this is the perfect time to grow. That's impossible. You're never going to know what that answer is. I think all you can know for certain is you feel like you've picked the best candidate to move forward with. You know what I mean? And then you just like do what you do and like bust your butt to like help get them busy. I think the biggest one is I have confidence in our kind of like 2 staff members we have right now. It's like these people, like soft skills wise, are like awesome people, great trainers. Okay, it's on me now to help fill their schedule, but I feel really confident with who I picked.
Right.
I don't have any like second guessing of like, I think this is person's a good fit for our brand. Like feedback has been really good from clients. So it's like, okay, I can be rest assured, like I feel like this is the right gamble to make right now.
And again, those people that are training with your new trainer and your older trainer, they like training with them. They're going to tell their friends.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah.
And especially something like that where, no offense, you're kind of a dime a dozen.
Sure.
Same with makeup artists, hairstylists, all that stuff. I mean, there's a lot of us out there.
Yeah.
But people need to feel great, like you said, when they leave your gym, and that goes down to the trainer and the space.
Yeah. Yeah. And then just being confident that you've like put the right people in the right position there.
Yeah.
And if there's an error, there's wrong, and you can't coach it up, then like obviously you got to step in and make that correction. But I think that's because we're literally in that spot right now of helping this new trainer get busy. It's like I feel very confident that we've selected right for the soft skills, keep like coaching up over the next couple months. And then I guess the new job for me is now getting that person busy. So as we talk about pulling hours away, what's my new job now? My new job is finding clients that are not going to be training with me. That's kind of my behind the scenes work now that I'm not getting paid for. But it's what I want because that's going to give me that freedom.
Yes.
In other hours of my day. So it's like, this is, and it comes back to like, whenever I feel busy or stressed, it's like, this is the stress I want. Like, this is the stress I want of getting someone else busy. I wanted this. It's, that's the right stress for me right now.
So where are you going to find your clients, Justin?
Our social media page. Which is,
yeah, right.
We have like 900 people on our social media.
But that 900 people is not 900.
It's great. They're a great 900 people.
Yeah.
Yeah. We do it other ways. Making connections.
Which is? Making connections.
Yeah. Word of mouth. Okay, doing our job well.
Yeah.
Showing up on time.
Manifesting right in your
Manifesting.
journal.
Yeah. Right. Dream journal. Yeah.
Okay. This has been awesome. I feel like this is very, very valuable for people, especially ones that are starting or they want to start a team, grow a team.
Yeah.
At the end of every episode, I might be putting you on the spot here.
That's okay.
I like to give at least 1 to 3 takeaways for team management, retention, leadership, anything like that. Do you anything that we could share with the listeners?
Yeah, I think what we addressed there, like the big takeaway is starting with those SOPs. You know what I mean? Starting to document things you do in the day. Like your classic things that the biggest thing I'd say is like, if there's something you don't like doing, document it, create an SOP so someone else can do it. If you don't do that, no one else is going to get a chance to do it. Like if you don't like how towels get folded, you're going to have to write down how you want the towels folded.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're never going to be able to outsource that.
Or let it go.
Or let it go.
Yeah.
Start with that. That even if you don't have another staff member, start treating your business like you are going to hand that off to a staff member.
I love that.
Yeah. And then when you do hire that staff member, you've already got like something in place. You're not starting from scratch with that as well.
Yeah.
That would be the big one, I'd say, if you're not ready yet to hire that person, but you want to start that kind of foundation. Start with like SOPs, starting planning stuff, especially the stuff you'd like to eventually outsource and not do as much. I think that's massive.
Oh, that's incredible advice.
Yeah. And then the next one would be, we've started building those SOPs, that foundation for handing stuff off. It's making connections with those people in your industry that are training the people that will come work for you. Find a way to reach out to them, volunteer your time, be like someone that helps out and donate your time to the school or whatever industry that is. Be that, hopefully that first or second call when a student is looking for a job, be that person they reach out to, make those connections that maybe your competitors aren't willing to donate their time and do. be that kind of first resource for students that are graduating, or if you're looking for hiring someone, being able to reach out to instructors and be like, who do you think would be a great fit for our business? You know our business because we've stayed in touch with you. Who do you think would be an awesome fit? They can narrow down that candidate pool for you and take it from, you know what I mean, an Indeed post to like, we're just going to reach out to these 3 people that we feel like are a really good fit and save you a ton of time and effort.
Yeah. It's honestly, you remind me of my dad a lot right now because, which is, you know what I mean?
Yeah. We'll look into that later. That'll be another podcast.
But I was actually just reminiscing back to when I worked at the auto body shop, and there was a week that we didn't have a ton of cars, and he got on the phone and he said, hey, you still want to get those trucks fixed for your fleet? Bring them on in. You still want to, and that's all he did is he had built these relationships and this network of people and called them up. Yeah.
And it's not always going to be transactional.
No.
It probably can't start like that.
Yeah.
But it's probably the stuff that other people in your industry are not willing to do.
Yeah.
That's going to separate you when kind of push comes to shove and you now need to have that ask and you've put in a lot of like legwork. It's going to be reap dividends.
Yeah. Where can our listeners find you?
You can be one of our 900 Instagram followers. So we're Cross Conditioning on Instagram. You can find us online at crossconditioning.ca. If you're interested in trying out some of our program, you can click free week, fill in some info, and then I'll reach out to you and you can come try us out for a week and see if we're a good fit.
You should do it because it's so much fun. And maybe we could train together.
You never know.
You never know.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Talk to you soon. All right, another episode bites the dust. If you loved this conversation as much as I did, don't forget to hit follow, leave a review, or even send it to a friend you think would enjoy it. And because I like to keep things fun, we're always running giveaways with our amazing guests. So make sure to check out the show notes, our Instagram page, get in on the details on how to get the free stuff because it's free and fun. And who doesn't like that? Another little disclaimer, while I love sharing advice and business wisdom, I am not your lawyer, I'm not your accountant, and I'm not your fairy godmother. If you do want to be best friends, though, you can hit me up. Everything on this podcast is for educational and entertainment purposes only, so no lawsuits, okay? Thank you for hanging out with me today. If you'd like to hang out more, you can find me on Instagram at I am Heather Dick and at the Expansion Code. And all of our free resources and consulting packages are on the website, www.theexpansioncode.ca. I appreciate you being here more than you know. I will see you next time.